Published literature example, module 4.1.3. So we are going to now move and show you, going to the class website, again, where the example will be. So again, going to modules, website, there we go. You will find down in week 4, this part here, the working prototype of the Johns Hopkins ACG manual. And in that, you'll find a 42-page document. I think we can make it bigger. Let's do that super quick. And then zoom out a little bit more. So it's a little dated, but it does most of the tasks of what you need to do. So we're going to focus on a few things in this. You're not going to get quizzed on this. We're not going to have a pop test on 42 pages of the ACGs. But the idea of this ACG system is that it's a diagnosis-based case mix system. Remember, we're measuring patient risk for week 4. And it can allow providers, health plans, public sector agencies to describe and predict a patient's past or future healthcare utilization and costs. ACG system is also widely used by researchers now to compare various patient populations, health resource use, while taking into account comorbidity or illness burden. So when we get to week 6, when you do some of the regression analysis with R, actually some of the variables generated from the case mix system will actually be used exactly that way. So ACG stands for Adjusted Clinical Group, Actuarial Cells. We're going to focus on the ADG part of it, which is known as Aggregated Diagnosis Groups. So, as illustrated here, there are roughly 25,000 of these codes, and they need to be mapped. So we're going to focus on the ICD-9 codes because those are what are in our claims database. There is a mapping for ICD-10 as well. So just to give you a sense of what these are the full map of the 34 ADGs. The thing that makes these things unique compared to the previous diagnosis code set that we looked at in the previous module, where it's a range of things, as say for neurology, and here's one for the circulatory system. These are grouping based on, if you will, the type of medical care effort and things that make it unique for that effort. So for example, it's a condition that could be time limited, it's minor, or maybe there's some infections, or maybe it's a major condition, though time limited. So for example, give you an illustration here, impaction of the intestine doesn't sound pleasant versus diaper rash for time limited minor. And there's some things that are so unique they need their own categories, such as asthma. There are things that are not time limited, but they come back, like likely to reoccur. They could be discrete, they could be infections, or they could be progressive, such as cerebral thrombosis. And then for a lot of chronic conditions, we're going to focus on some of the things. There's chronic medical that are stable, meaning things are okay if you have adult onset type 1 diabetes. But then there are things that could be unstable, such as sickle cell anemia and cystic fibrosis that are very progressive. There's also things that are more specialty oriented, such as joint derangement, and then other things that get more specifically in use. We go further into this, you can see the full 34. There are ones that are dermatologic, there are ones that go into injuries, so something that's actually, for example, a major injury, intracranial injury, poisoning by I can't pronounce it, cardiotonic and glycosylcenes, and similar drugs. All those practitioners out there, you can write me later. There's I think someone may have a sense of humor in California here. Psychosocial time limited minor, cannabis abuse unspecified, dude. And then things that are much more significant. Psychosocial, recurrent, persistent, and unstable. So alcohol withdrawal, delirium could be a major problem issue. Or catatonic schizophrenia is a major issue. So you get the sense all these things are going to be mapped, and you're going to be using these as in your exercise. You might say, well, how am I going to do this? This is like an incredible system in terms of what's going on. Well, let me show you a little bit of a preview how you will be doing this. A lot of this work, again, as I mentioned, I did work with Johns Hopkins. That's my alum institution. And I also applied, I was one of the first people to apply the ACG system to a commercial population. It was developed for the Medicaid population, and then kind of worked from there. So let's go back to SAS Studio. down below here, inside of Table 4, there actually is a mechanism by which we are going to bring in an ADG map and then customize this program to be able to work the way we want it to. And we'll actually map everybody into a flag about what their ADGs look like. Basically, everyone will have a flag that's 0 or 1, depending on which of the 34 ADGs do they have. We, again, using some of the code that we talked about in the 3rd week, we're going to take the diagnosis code, this in this case called diag detail, map it to essentially a giant crosswalk table of ADGs. So all the diagnosis codes, the thousands and thousands of diagnosis codes, each are mapped to one of the unique 34 ADGs. We're going to map them into a space, basically going through every single claim. This takes a while to do this. We're also going to put something in there to say, let's just flag hypertension and diabetes along the way. And then we're going to then ultimately come up with a count variable of ADGs. We don't actually use that, but it's something you might want to think about using as an illness severity measure or just patient sickness measure for your papers. Merge in demographics into the program and do some count information. And so in the end, we don't use all the 34 ADGs. This is a little bit of a burden, but we pick the ones that are pretty interesting in terms of public policy. Asthma, chronic medical stable, unstable, injuries, psychosocial, basically the 3 mental health ones that are there. Because the thought is that these will give you a pretty good range of very distinct and expensive and unique illnesses, and these will give you a better sense of just how sick that person is by just overall what's going on. And then we, of course, summarize it like we've done before, put it out as a table, and then to work with later. So we're going to get into the programming piece of this in a different module, but I just wanted to connect, if you will, how essentially these readings, essentially, or those mechanisms kind of fall together for the exercise that we have in mind. So this concludes this module on using the published literature to inform how we will be constructing our 4th week analysis to measure patient risk.